Subscribe if you love a rejected Luna who learns the rules, breaks the trap and chooses her own ending. Lyra Vale overheard her alpha fiancé choose another woman behind the silver curtains. Not in rumor. Not through a servant. Not after a careful explanation in a council room. She heard it while standing 3 steps outside the moon ballroom, wearing the white ceremonial gown Aldrich himself had chosen for her. Inside the alcove, Alpha King Aldrich of Greyhallow laughed softly. "Seraphine understands what a queen should be," he said. "Lyra is loyal, yes, but she is too sharp. Too loud. Too quick to answer back." Lady Seraphine replied in a voice sweet enough to rot fruit. "Then announce me tonight." "I will," Aldrich said. "After the first dance. Lyra can be sent somewhere quiet to learn grace." Lyra looked down at her own hands. They were not shaking. That was the first warning. Her wolf, silent from shock a moment before, lifted her head inside Lyra's chest. "Good," the wolf seemed to say. "Open the curtain." So Lyra did. The silver curtain flew aside. Aldrich turned. Seraphine froze with her hand on his sleeve. The moon ballroom behind them glittered with chandeliers, crystal goblets, silver garlands, and half the noble houses of the Western Pax. Everyone saw Lyra. Everyone saw Aldrich. Everyone saw Seraphine wearing the pearl bracelet that belonged to the future Luna. Lyra smiled. It was not a kind smile. "Your Majesty," she said. "I believe I heard my name." Aldrich's face lost a full shade of color. "Lyra," he said carefully. "This is not what it sounds like." "No?" Lyra stepped into the alcove. "Excellent. I was worried I had overheard my fiancé choosing another woman and planning to send me away like an inconvenient chair." A servant dropped a tray. The sound cracked through the ballroom. Seraphine recovered first. She was beautiful in the careful way of court women who treated beauty like a weapon. Pale gold hair. Sapphire gown. Soft little mouth trained to tremble at exactly the correct time. "My lady," Seraphine said, "you should not have been listening." Lyra looked at her. Then at the bracelet. Then at Aldrich. "I should not have been listening," Lyra repeated. "I should have been dancing in the center of that room while my fiancé rehearsed my replacement behind curtains?" Aldrich stepped forward. "Lower your voice." That did it. Not the betrayal. Not the bracelet. Not even the word quiet, as if Lyra were a troublesome dog to be kennelled. It was the command. "Lower your voice." For 3 years, Aldrich had admired her courage in private. He had told her she would bring strength to his throne. He had kissed her hand beneath moon banners and said Greyhallow needed a queen with fire. Now, with Seraphine holding his arm, he wanted fire to become a candle. Lyra's smile turned sweeter. "As you wish." She lowered her voice. Then she picked up the nearest silver punch bowl and poured the entire roseberry contents over his polished black boots. The ballroom gasped. Aldrich stared down. Seraphine shrieked. Lyra set the bowl aside with perfect gentleness. "Forgive me," she said. "My hand slipped from all the grace I am learning." Aldrich grabbed her wrist. It was not painful. Aldrich knew better than to leave a mark in public. But his fingers closed like a warning. "Enough," he said. Lyra looked at his hand. Her wolf bared her teeth. Lyra had never been considered delicate. She had grown up with stable boys, border riders, and a grandmother who believed every noble woman should know how to throw a man twice her size if he became foolish. Still, she had spent months pretending courtship required less muscle and more patience. Tonight, patience left through the open balcony doors. Lyra twisted. Aldrich's grip broke. His balance followed. She did not hurt him seriously. She was not careless. She did not turn the ballroom into something ugly. She simply used his own forward weight, a turn of her hip, and the slippery punch beneath his heel. The Alpha King of Greyhallow sat down very suddenly in the 7-tier honey almond cake. The silence lasted 1 perfect second. Then someone near the musicians choked. Someone else coughed. A young guard made a sound like a dying goose. Seraphine flew toward Aldrich. "Your Majesty." Lyra caught the loose end of Seraphine's sapphire sash. Not hard. Just enough. Seraphine spun, stepped into the punch, flailed once, grabbed the curtains, tore them from their hooks, and landed in the decorative basket of white moon roses. Petals exploded over her hair. Lyra folded her hands in front of her. The entire ballroom watched their future Luna standing dry, composed, and smiling while the Alpha King sat in a cake and his chosen woman wore a curtain like a defeated flag. That, Lyra said softly, was me lowering my voice. No one laughed. Not yet. Aldrich rose slowly. Cake creams slid from his black formal coat. His eyes had gone wolf gold with humiliation. Lyra Vale, he said, you will leave this hall. With pleasure. You will leave this court. That made the room shift. Lyra's heart did not break. Not exactly. It made one hard, quiet sound inside her chest. Aldrich lifted his chin. Since you refuse to behave as a future queen, you will learn. At dawn, you will be escorted to the House of Gentle Moons. 3 years under their matrons should teach you court discipline. A murmur spread. The House of Gentle Moons. Every noblewoman knew that name. A finishing academy, people said. A place where difficult daughters and wives became polished, silent, and grateful. But every woman who returned from it came back quieter. Thinner in spirit. Smiling with empty eyes. Lyra's wolf went still. Seraphine climbed from the roses, face bright with victorious spite. Aldrich, still covered in cake, pointed toward the doors. When you return, you will apologize. Lyra looked at him for a long moment. Then she curtsied. It was perfect. Oh, elegant. Dangerous. I will learn every rule, she said. I promise. She turned and walked out before the tears could come. Behind her, someone finally laughed. One small laugh. Then another. By the time Lyra reached the corridor, the sound had become dangerous. Aldrich had chosen another woman. And he had forgotten something important. Rules cut both ways. 1. The house that failed the carriage left Greyhallow before dawn. Lyra sat alone inside it, wearing the same white gown from the ballroom. No one had given her time to change. Someone had tried to take the pearl pins from her hair, but Lyra had looked at the woman's hand until she backed away. Outside, the city was awake. Not with celebration. With whispers. People stood in doorways. Bakers, guards, market wives, laundresses, kennel boys, old soldiers wrapped in gray cloaks. They had heard. Of course they had heard. Greyhallow lived on rumors the way wolves lived on scent. Aldrich had sent his future Luna away for embarrassing him after he was caught choosing another woman. That was not a clean story. It was a story with teeth. A little market apprentice at the west gate raised one fist. His mother pulled it down quickly, but not before Lyra saw. Lyra pressed 2 fingers to the carriage window in answer. The escort captain looked away. The House of Gentle Moons stood on a hill 3 days north, where the wind never seemed to warm. It was a beautiful place from a distance. White stone towers. Blue roofs. Rose gardens pruned into circles. A silver bell above the main arch up close, the beauty sharpened. Every window was narrow. Every door locked from the outside. Every woman who crossed the courtyard watched the matrons before she watched the sky. Madame Severine greeted Lyra at the steps. She was tall, thin, and wrapped in pale gray silk. Her smile was polished enough to reflect knives. Lady Vale, she said. We have received His Majesty's instructions. I am honored, Lyra replied. You are here to learn humility. How fortunate. I brought none. 2 students carrying laundry looked down quickly. Madame Severine's smile thinned. Wit is a defense used by women who do not yet understand consequence. Lyra glanced up at the locked windows. I am beginning to understand consequence very well. The first month was meant to bend her. The matrons woke the students before dawn. They walked with books balanced on their heads. They copied etiquette passages until their fingers cramped. They ate small meals from white bowls and listened to lectures about soft speech, lowered eyes, modest steps, and the danger of female anger. Lyra listened. She learned the rules. Then she studied the gaps between them. If a woman was ordered to scrub the east stairs until every stone shone, Lyra scrubbed beside her. Then she taught her how to use the bucket handle to strengthen her wrists. If a matron said noble brides must never raise their voices, Lyra began speaking in a voice so sweet and soft that every insult became a lace-covered arrow. If a visiting lord said obedience was a woman's finest ornament, Lyra smiled and asked whether his first wife had agreed before she ran away with the horsemaster. The women began watching her, then following her, then waiting for her. By winter, the House of Gentle Moons had a problem. Its newest pupil had not become smaller. She had become harder to move. The first true shift came because of Iris. Iris Bell was not a noble student. She was a junior record clerk, 20 when Lyra arrived and terrified of everyone. She carried ledgers, repaired ink pots, and flinched when Madame Séverine spoke too sharply. She also noticed everything. One evening, Lyra found Iris crying in the linen room over a torn ledger page. "Who did that?" Lyra asked. Iris wiped her face. "No one. No one has terrible handwriting." Iris stared. Lyra crouched beside her. A ginger-brown Abyssinian cat with enormous ears leaped from a shelf and landed on Lyra's shoulder as if they had been introduced by fate. Lyra froze. The cat blinked. Iris sniffed. "That is Fig. She steals buttons. Madame Séverine hates her. Then Fig has taste." The cat kneaded Lyra's shoulder and began purring like a small engine. Iris gave a watery laugh. It was the first sound of joy Lyra had heard in that building. That night Iris told her the truth. The House of Gentle Moons did not only teach manners. It took private instructions from husbands, fathers, brothers, and kings. Make her quiet. Make her grateful. Make her forget the inheritance clause. Make her stop writing letters. Make her afraid to contradict her betrothed. Some women came for a season. Some remained for years. Some left with perfect smiles and no fight in them. Lyra listened until the candle burned low. Then she said, "Where are the records?" Iris looked terrified. Fig began chewing on the corner of Madame Séverine's stolen ribbon. Lyra waited. At last Iris whispered, "Under the blue chapel floor." Lyra smiled. Not kindly. The next 3 years did not make Lyra gentle. They made her precise. She learned embroidery because a needle could hide messages. She learned dance because a turn could become leverage. She learned court law because every rule had a witness requirement, and men who used law as a cage often forgot to lock all the doors. In the margins of one old statute she found crown redress, a forgotten path for a wronged royal bride to challenge the ruler who misused correction law. She copied the statute by candlelight. Then she copied it again. The first copy went into her trunk. The second went under Iris's mattress. The third went into Fig's collar ribbon because no matron in the house had ever successfully searched that animal and kept all her fingers unbitten. Lyra learned to carry water buckets 2 at a time until her shoulders hardened and her balance became flawless. She taught frightened students to fall without hurting themselves. She taught them to smile without surrendering. She taught them that a curtsy could be beautiful and still look like a challenge. The students began calling her the Rose Hall Queen, although the academy was not called Rose Hall and Lyra had never asked to be queen of anything. Madame Séverine called her a corrupting influence. Lyra called Madame Séverine an educational opportunity. Fig became their courier, thief, alarm bell, and judge. The cat stole wax seals from letters that should not have existed. She dragged ribbon trails from locked offices. She knocked ink over forged discipline reports with the focused malice of a tiny brown storm. Once, during a lecture on feminine restraint, Fig leaped onto the table, deposited a stolen lace ribbon in Madame Séverine's teacup, and stared at her until 3 students had to leave the room to laugh into their sleeves. Lyra loved her immediately. At the end of the 3rd year, a sealed letter arrived from Greyhallow. Madame Séverine read it in the courtyard, where all the students had gathered for posture drill. Her mouth tightened. "Lady Vale," she said. "His Majesty has ordered your return." The courtyard went silent. Lyra kept both water buckets in her hands. "Has he? The term of correction has ended. How merciful of time." Madame Séverine folded the letter. "You will remember what you learned here." Lyra set the buckets down. Every student in the courtyard watched her. Iris stood near the chapel door with a ledger hidden beneath her shawl. Fig sat on the wall, tail flicking. Lyra stepped closer to Madame Séverine. "I learned that obedience is often a costume cowards demand from people they fear." Madame Séverine's nostrils flared. Lyra curtsied. "Again perfect. Again dangerous. I also learned to keep records." Iris smiled for the first time without fear. Fig sneezed. The silver bell rang above them. Lyra left the House of Gentle Moons with 1 trunk, 1 cat, 1 loyal clerk, and enough hidden ledger copies to hang a dozen noble houses by their own signatures. She did not know yet that a dragon had been reading reports about her. She only knew Aldrich expected a softer woman. That was going to be funny. 2. The return banquet Greyhallow had changed less than Lyra expected. The palace still rose from black stone and silver pine. The towers still wore moon banners. The wolf guard still stood 2 straight when nobles passed and relaxed when kitchen women carried fresh bread. But the city had changed. People came out again. Not cheering openly. Aldrich was still Alpha King and open defiance had a price. But they watched. A fishmonger bowed to Lyra's carriage. An old seamstress touched her own cheek, then her heart. 3 stable hands stood in a line and raised their fists the way the market apprentice had done 3 years before. Lyra sat very still. Her wolf pressed against her ribs. The wolf said. No, Lyra thought. Not yet. Aldrich had arranged the return carefully. Of course he had. He could not simply bring her back through a servant gate. The public anger had never fully faded. Everyone remembered how he had sent his future Luna away for reacting to his betrayal. Everyone knew he had brought her back because he had to, not because he was sorry. So he chose spectacle. A restoration banquet. A public welcome for his corrected bride. A border treaty dinner with visiting nobles and Ash Court witnesses. A formal renewal of her place beside him. A public answer to the House of Gentle Moon's scandal. A performance. Lyra admired the stupidity. A public stage was generous. The palace maids met her in the east wing with too many smiles and too little eye contact. They had orders to dress her in pale blue, the color of submission after correction. Lyra took one look at the gown and said, "No," the senior maid swallowed. His Majesty selected it. How sentimental. Lyra opened her trunk. She wore deep wine red instead. Not scandalous. Not improper. Just rich, severe, and impossible to mistake for apology. Fig sat on the dressing table and batted at the blue gown's sleeve until it slid to the floor. Fig agrees, Lyra said. Iris, now steadier in the shoulders and sharper in the eyes, pinned Lyra's hair with a simple bronze comb. Are you nervous? Iris asked. Yes. That startled her. You are. Nerves are useful. They remind the hands to stay accurate. Iris looked at Lyra's hands. Accurate for what? Lyra smiled at their reflection. Forgiveness. The banquet hall blazed with light. Nobles filled every table. Aldrich sat at the high dais in black and silver, handsome as ever, with dark hair brushed back from a face made for coins and statues. He had grown broader, more kingly and less honest around the eyes. Seraphine sat 2 seats below him. Not beside him. That would have been too obvious. But she wore the Luna pearls again, and her father's grain contracts depended on everyone believing she would soon replace Lyra. Lyra saw the pearls from the doorway. So did half the hall. The other half pretended not to. Aldrich rose. The room followed. Lyra walked in without haste. Fig padded behind her on silent paws, tail high, as if she had also been invited as a foreign ambassador. Aldrich's smile wavered when he saw the gown. Then it returned. Lady Vale, he said warmly. Welcome home. Oh. The word came late and poorly dressed. Lyra curtsied. Your Majesty. A faint crease appeared between his brows. No, Aldrich. No, my love. No apology. Good. He descended the dais and offered his hand. 3 years ago, Lyra would have taken it because the room required it. Tonight, she looked at his hand for half a beat too long. Then she placed her fingers on his palm. His thumb tightened slightly. A warning. She smiled. A threat. You look well, Aldrich said under his breath. You look dry, she replied. A mercy considering our last formal evening. His jaw flexed. Behind him, Seraphine's mouth flattened. At the high table, one chair remained empty. Not Aldrich's. Not Lyra's. The guest of honor had not arrived. Lyra noticed the black gold place card. His Draconic Majesty, Kaelin Draven, Dragon King of Ash Court. So that was why Aldrich had made the banquet so elaborate. The Dragon King had come. Lyra knew of him, of course. Everyone did. Kaelin Draven ruled the mountain kingdom east of the border, where dragon lineages held human shape and ancient fire under the skin. He was said to be cold, enormous, unmarried, and impossible to flatter. He had never visited Greyhallow for pleasure. He was here for the border grain treaty. He was also here because the House of Gentle Moons had used Ashcourt road grants for 30 years, and several sealed complaints had finally crossed the mountain border. Aldrich thought Kaelin had come to sign grain. Lyra did not yet know that Kaelin had come to ask why one future Luna had been sent to a funded institution and returned with half the region singing about cake. Aldrich led Lyra to the dais. She saw the arrangement before she sat. Aldrich's chair at center. Lyra's restored Luna chair to his right. Seraphine below, close enough to be seen. Dragon King's chair to Aldrich's left. It was meant to show balance. It showed cowardice. Before anyone could sit, the doors opened. The temperature changed. Not cold. Not warm. Harsh. As if every candle had remembered it belonged to fire. Kalen Draven entered without announcement because the herald seemed to forget his own voice. He was taller than any man in the hall. Broad-shouldered, black-haired, dressed in a severe coat of dark bronze and midnight wool. Gold moved in his eyes like banked flame. Not bright. Not theatrical. Controlled. Dangerous. The room bowed. Aldrich smiled with all his teeth. Your Majesty. Greyhallow welcomes Ash Court. Kalen's gaze moved once across the hall. It did not hurry. It touched the high table. Aldrich. Seraphine. Lyra. Fig, who had jumped onto Lyra's chair and was sniffing the napkin. Kalen's eyebrow lifted by the smallest amount. Then his gaze returned to Lyra. Not her gown. Not her face only. Her stance. Her hands. The bronze comb in her hair. The way she had not sat until every man in the room decided what to do about the cat. Aldrich cleared his throat. Lady Lyra has returned to us corrected and restored. Kalen looked at him. Corrected. The word landed softly. Aldrich's smile twitched. Educated in courtly discipline. Kalen's eyes moved to Fig. The cat had begun dragging Aldrich's ceremonial napkin off the table. I see, Kalen said. Lyra caught the napkin with one finger before it fell. Fig bit the corner and refused to release it. Lyra whispered, traitor. The cat bit harder. For the first time, Kalen Draven almost smiled. Was barely there. To still change the room. Dinner began. Aldrich made a speech about healing old misunderstandings. Seraphine lowered her lashes at every proper moment. Nobles nodded. The musicians played too gently. Lyra ate 3 bites of soup and listened. The story being told was clear. Lyra had been wild. Lyra had been corrected. Lyra had returned grateful. Aldrich was merciful. Seraphine was patient. The kingdom was whole. Then Fig vanished under the table. Lyra felt the absence like a bell. She set down her spoon. Across the table, Kalen also looked down. A moment later, Fig emerged with a black leather glove in her mouth. Not Aldrich's. Kalen's. The Dragon King watched his stolen glove pass beneath 2 chairs, around a startled minister and toward the side corridor. Lyra closed her eyes briefly. Fig. The cat ignored her. Kalen rose. The entire room stopped. Aldrich blinked. Your Majesty? My glove has entered diplomatic custody, Kalen said. A sound moved through the room. Not quite laughter. Not safe enough yet. Lyra stood as well. My apologies. She has poor respect for borders. Kalen looked at her. Most interesting creatures do. Then he followed the cat. Lyra had no choice. She followed too. The corridor outside the banquet hall was narrow and lined with mirrored silver panels. Fig dragged the glove around the bend, paused, and looked back as if disappointed by their speed. Lyra reached for the glove at the same moment Kalen did. Their hands did not quite touch. The glove slid under a narrow bench. Lyra bent first, caught it, and rose too quickly. Her shoulder brushed Kalen's chest. It was only an instant. Enough. He did not step back. He braced one gloved hand against the wall beside her head, not trapping her, but giving her a clean path away from the sharp bench corner behind her. The air between them warmed. He smelled faintly of smoke, cedar, and cold mountain stone. Lyra lifted her chin. Your Majesty, you are in my way. His gaze dropped to the space between them. Then returned to her face. No, he said quietly. I am deciding whether that bench deserves to survive you. Her pulse answered before her pride could stop it. Rude heart. She pushed the glove against his chest. Then save your furniture and keep better hold of your belongings. His hand closed over the glove. For a breath, her fingers were caught between leather and heat. He released first. Of course he did. That made it worse. Behind them, through the half-open conservatory door, Seraphine's voice slipped into the corridor. Let her fetch the animal, Seraphine murmured. Then announced the private arrangement. The Dragon King need not know every household matter. Aldrich answered in a low voice, after tonight. She will stand where I need her. You will have the real place. Lyra stopped. There it was again. Not behind silver curtains this time. Behind an open door. The same wound. The same man. The same choice. Only Lyra had changed. Fig sat outside the conservatory, Kaelin's glove now beneath one paw like legal evidence. Kaelin stood beside Lyra, looking through the half-open door at Aldrich and Seraphine. He had heard. Of course he had. Dragon hearing perhaps. Or male arrogance simply traveled well. Lyra took the glove from Fig and held it out to him. I apologize for the interruption. Kaelin did not take it at once. His eyes were on her face. You have just been insulted in your own restoration banquet. Yes. Do you require assistance? No, something moved in his expression. Not disappointment. Interest. Lyra handed him the glove more firmly. I require witnesses. Kaelin took it. Aldrich appeared in the doorway. Seraphine behind him. Both froze. Lyra smiled. Sweetly. Aldrich's shoulders tightened. He remembered that smile. Lyra, he said. This is not as suitable. She swept past him into the conservatory. It was a beautiful room. Orange trees. Moon orchids. Marble fish pond. A little table set with wine and sugared plums. Private. Elegant. Perfect. Lyra picked up the wine jug. Aldrich took one step back. She poured wine into a cup. Then another. Then set one cup in front of Seraphine. How kind of you to prepare a private toast for my restoration, Lyra said. Seraphine's eyes narrowed. Do not play games. I spent 3 years learning games. Aldrich's voice dropped. Lyra. She turned to him. What? Should I lower my voice? Kaelin stood just inside the doorway. Not interfering. Not rescuing. Watching. The difference mattered. Lyra lifted Seraphine's cup. I forgive you, she said brightly. Seraphine blinked. Aldrich blinked. Lyra tipped the cup. The wine poured neatly over the sapphire gown. Seraphine gasped. Clumsy me, Lyra said. The academy warned me strong emotion could affect the hands. Seraphine lunged. Lyra moved aside. Seraphine grabbed at air, stepped on Fig's stolen ribbon, and slid backward into the cushioned bench. The bench rolled because conservatory benches were foolish objects with wheels. It struck the orange tree. 3 oranges fell. One bounced off Aldrich's shoulder. The second landed in the fish pond. The third hit Seraphine's lap. Fig attacked the orange. Aldrich stared. Kaelin's mouth did something dangerous. It did not become a smile. Not fully. Lyra folded both hands. Again forgive me. I am overcome. Seraphine rose, wine-soaked and furious. You savage. Lyra's smile vanished for one heartbeat. Then returned. No. Savage was the first year. By the 3rd year they promoted me. Aldrich moved between them. Enough. He reached for Lyra's arm. Kaelin moved. Not loudly. Not dramatically. One step and he was behind Lyra's shoulder. His arm crossed beside her, close enough for her to feel the heat of him without feeling trapped by it. His gloved hand caught Aldrich's wrist before Aldrich touched her. The contact was silent. The meaning was not. Aldrich froze. Lyra's back nearly brushed Kaelin's chest. Nearly. That half-inch of space did more damage to her composure than a full embrace could have done. She could feel him choosing restraint. She could feel the strength he did not use. Lyra looked sideways. I did not ask for a shield. Kaelin's voice came low, close enough that only she and Aldrich heard. No. You created the opening. I merely occupied it. A ridiculous warmth moved through her. Aldrich yanked his wrist free. Kaelin let him. Lyra stepped in before Aldrich could recover. Her palm pressed lightly to Aldrich's chest. He stopped because every court instinct told him not to shove her with the Dragon King watching. Lyra used the pause. She hooked one ankle behind his, turned, and guided him with gentle efficiency into the cushioned chair. Not a throw. Not quite. A lesson in gravity. Aldrich landed seated, stunned, with an orange rolling between his boots. Lyra patted his shoulder. Careful, Your Majesty. You seem unsteady. Fig jumped onto the back of Aldrich's chair and began licking wine from her paw. Lyra looked at Kaelin. Your Majesty, I apologize. My fiancé suffers from repeated accidents in my presence. So I have heard, Kaelin said. Aldrich's eyes flashed. This is a private matter. Kaelin looked at him. The room cooled by several degrees. No, the Dragon King said. It became a treaty matter when you described Lady Lyra as restored while privately planning to deny her restoration. Aldrich stood slowly. Seraphine clutched her stained dress. Lyra watched Kaelin. He had not said poor Lady Lyra. He had not called her wronged. He had named the legal problem. That was better. Much better. Aldrich's voice turned smooth. You misunderstand. Lady Lyra and I have a complicated history. Kaelin put on his stolen glove. I prefer uncomplicated records. Lyra felt something unexpected move in her chest. Not love. Not yet. Recognition. Aldrich turned to Lyra. You will return to the hall. You will smile. You will not humiliate this crown again. Lyra looked at the crown circlet resting above his brow. She smiled. Of course. That was the beginning of his suffering. 3. Lessons in obedience. For the first week after Lyra's return, Aldrich could not remove her. That was the funniest part. He had expected obedience. Instead he received compliance. There was a difference and Lyra weaponized it. Public anger still hung over Greyhallow like storm weather. Everyone remembered how he had sent his future Luna away for reacting to his betrayal. Everyone knew he had brought her back because he had to, not because he was sorry. The Dragon King's presence made it worse. Kaelin had stayed after the banquet. Officially, he remained to conclude the Border Grain Treaty and examine complaints related to the House of Gentle Moons. Unofficially, every noble in Greyhallow believed he was watching Aldrich. They were correct. Lyra noticed him often. At council sessions, standing silent near a pillar while Aldrich explained delays. In the library, reading trade ledgers with a black dragon scale bookmark. In the training yard, speaking with border captains while Fig circled his boots like a tax collector. He did not crowd Lyra. That made him harder to ignore. A man who demanded attention could be dismissed. A man who gave space and still changed the air was another problem entirely. Meanwhile, Lyra became the most obedient woman in the palace. Aldrich ordered her to attend the morning council. She arrived early with corrected seating charts. My lord, she said, as your restored Luna, I noticed Lady Seraphine has been seated above 2 widowed pack mothers, 3 treaty daughters, and the commander of the Eastern Kennels. I corrected the insult. Seraphine was moved to the far end of the room, between an elderly tax auditor and a woman who raised war geese. The geese woman loved talking. Seraphine did not. Aldrich ordered Lyra to supervise kitchen charity. She did. She also discovered 3 chests of winter grain had been redirected to Seraphine's family estate. The next day Lyra placed the records before the council and smiled. Small accounting error. I am sure Lady Seraphine will be relieved to return the grain publicly. Seraphine had to stand in the market square and distribute bread for 6 hours. Fig sat on a flour sack and slapped her hand every time she tried to leave early. Aldrich ordered Lyra to tend to him after his injuries from the conservatory. Lyra obeyed beautifully. She replaced his wine with bitter joint tonic. She ordered soft meals because His Majesty's dignity suffered a fall. She had him wrapped in lavender-scented healing cloths and read etiquette manuals beside his bed in a soothing voice. Chapter 12, she said one evening. A gentleman must never create confusion between wife, favored companion, and guest. Such disorder suggests weak breeding or weaker governance. Aldrich lay under 3 blankets, jaw clenched. I am not ill. Then your recovery is miraculous. Lyra. Would you like more broth? He closed his eyes. Outside the chamber, 2 guards made strangled noises. Lyra did not laugh. That would have been rude. She left the room and found Kaelin Draven standing at the end of the hall, reading a document. He had clearly heard everything. Fig trotted past with one of Aldrich's slipper tassels. Kaelin watched the cat pass. Is the Alpha King recovering? He asked. His pride remains fragile. A common injury among kings. Lyra folded the etiquette manual against her chest. Does Ashcourt have a chapter on that? We burn the book and observe the results. She laughed before she could stop herself. It surprised her. The sound was not a weapon. Not performance. Not armor. Just laughter. Kaelin looked at her as if he had noticed the difference. Lyra looked away first. Dangerous. Not because he was cruel. Because he was not. That evening, Iris arrived at the palace under Lyra's protection. She came with 2 trunks of copied ledgers and a fear she tried to hide behind a plain brown cloak. The palace overwhelmed her. The chandeliers, guards, wolf nobles, polished floors, all of it. Lyra met her at the east entrance. You came. Iris clutched the strap of her satchel. I almost turned back 7 times. That is efficient. I expected 9. Iris smiled weakly. Fig leaped into her arms. Then stole the ribbon from her hair. I brought the blue chapel records, Iris whispered. Also the payment slips with the gray hallow seal. Lyra's smile faded. Good woman. Iris shook her head. I am still frightened. Good. Courage without fear is only bad planning. Iris laughed softly. Kalen found them in the archive an hour later. He did not ask why Iris was there. He simply set a sealed Ashcourt writ on the table. The House of Gentle Moons accepted Dragon Road funds for 30 years, he said. That gives Ashcourt audit rights. Iris blinked. You can open their accounts? I can open their walls if they refuse. Lyra looked up. Kalen's tone was calm. That made it funnier. Iris stared at him with open alarm. Lyra touched her arm. He usually starts with paperwork. Usually, Kalen said. Fig jumped onto the table and lay across the writ. Kalen looked at the cat. Does she approve? Lyra lifted Fig gently. She approves of obstruction. Then she understands politics. Iris laughed. Small. Brave. Kalen's eyes softened a fraction. Lyra noticed. Against her will. For the next month, Grey Hallow became a palace of tiny disasters. Every disaster had perfect manners. Seraphine found herself assigned to public charity work, widow luncheons, sickroom visits, and kennel inspections because Lyra insisted a future queen's dear friend should share the labor of the court. Aldrich could not object without admitting Seraphine had no official role. When Seraphine refused kennel inspection, the royal hounds refused her. All 12 of them sat in a line and stared until she backed out of the yard. Lyra fed them liver biscuits. Kalen watched from the gate. The largest hound, Bracken, ignored Aldrich's command, trotted to Lyra, and pressed his massive head against her hip. A murmur passed among the guards. Pack beasts knew status. They knew steadiness. They knew lies. Lyra scratched Bracken's ear. Aldrich's face tightened. Kalen said nothing. But his gaze moved from the hound to Lyra with a heat she felt long after she left the yard. That night, Aldrich came to her private sitting room. Uninvited. Lyra was reviewing ledger copies with Iris while Fig slept in an open drawer. Aldrich dismissed Iris with a look. Iris stiffened. Lyra did not look up. Iris stays. Aldrich's mouth tightened. This is between us. No. That was the old problem. Iris's eyes widened. Aldrich shut the door. He looked tired. That gave Lyra no satisfaction. Not enough anyway. You are making me look ridiculous, he said. Lyra turned a page. You managed the foundation. I merely added curtains. I brought you home. You had to. I could have left you there. Lyra looked up then. The room cooled. No, she said. You could not. Aldrich's nostrils flared. Do not mistake public sentiment for power. Do not mistake a crown for competence. He stepped toward her. Fig woke and hissed. Aldrich stopped. The fact that he stopped for a 12-pound cat almost restored Lyra's faith in the universe. You were not like this before, he said. No. Before, I thought love required patience. And now? Now I know patience is best used while loading a trap. For one strange moment, pain crossed his face. Real pain. Lyra, he said more quietly. We were happy once. Her fingers tightened on the ledger. There was the wound. Not the school. Not Seraphine. Not the cake. The memory of being loved by the man who would later choose her absence. Yes, she said. We were. His face changed. He thought he had found a door. Then Lyra closed it. And then you used that happiness as proof I would endure anything. The silence after that was not comfortable for either of them. Aldrich looked away first. I will make arrangements, he said. You may have your own estate. A generous income. A formal separation in all but name. Let this end. Lyra leaned back. There. The first offer. Not apology. Payment. How generous. You want freedom, do you not? I do. Then name the price. Iris stopped breathing. Fig's tail flicked from the drawer. Lyra stood. Walked to the window. From there she could see the inner courtyard, the moon banners, and beyond them the central tower where Aldrich's crown rested each night under guard and law. She lifted one finger and pointed. I want that. Aldrich followed her finger. His face went blank. The tower? The crown. Iris made a tiny sound. Fig sat up. Aldrich stared at Lyra. Then he laughed. Not kindly. 3 years in that school made you mad. Lyra smiled. No. It made me read. He stepped closer. You cannot take the Alpha crown. Not alone. His laugh died. Lyra turned from the window. But if an Alpha king sends his betrothed Luna away under crown seal, does not reject her properly, restores her publicly for treaty use, seats another woman in her place, and then offers payment for her silence, she may file crown redress. Aldrich went still. Iris whispered, Section 41. Lyra glanced at her. 41 through 47. Aldrich's voice lowered. That law has not been used in 2 centuries. Then it must be lonely. You would turn the entire kingdom against itself? No, Lyra said. I would ask the kingdom who has already turned against it. A knock came at the door. Aldrich spun. Kalen stood in the open doorway. He held a document in one gloved hand. His expression was unreadable. I came to deliver the Ash Court audit notice, he said. But I appear to have arrived at the interesting part. Aldrich's face darkened. This is a private matter. Kalen stepped inside. No, he said. A crown redress petition involving a Dragon Road-funded institution and a border treaty bride is not private. Lyra's heart struck once against her ribs. Not fear. Not exactly. Aldrich looked between them. You think she can win? Kalen looked at Lyra. Not over her. Not around her. At her. I think, he said, Lady Lyra does not point at crowns for decoration. Lyra should not have felt that sentence in her knees. She did. For the dragon and the rule breaker the first time Kalen touched Lyra, it was to stop a shelf from crushing her. That was inconvenient. She would have preferred something less practical. They were in the old law archive below the palace, where dust lay thick enough to qualify as a second carpet. Iris had found a reference to crown redress witnesses being recorded in the treaty vault rather than the Lunar Registry. Aldrich had locked the Lunar Registry. Naturally. So Lyra went somewhere else. Kalen came because the treaty vault contained Ash Court seals, and no wolf clerk could open them without a dragon witness. Iris came because she no longer trusted anyone else to copy accurately. Fig came because someone had shut a door and she opposed the principle. The shelf collapsed when Fig leaped onto a stack of brittle vellum and startled a family of mice. Iris shouted. Lyra grabbed the top ledger before it fell into the dust. The shelf tipped. Kalen moved faster than any man that size should have been able to move. One hand caught the shelf. The other caught Lyra at the waist and drew her back. For one breath she was against him. Not trapped. Not held by force. Held because wood law and a wicked cat had conspired against gravity. Kalen's body ran warmer than a wolf's. Not fever. Fire banked beneath skin and discipline. Lyra's hand landed on his forearm. Under the fabric he was solid enough to embarrass architecture. Fig sneezed from inside the fallen scroll basket. Iris whispered, Oh dear. Kalen looked down at Lyra. Are you hurt? No, angry. Yes. At me? At the shelf. A reasonable enemy. She should have stepped back immediately. She did. Almost immediately. His hand left her waist as soon as she moved. No delay. No claim. That made the place he had touched feel warmer. Infuriating man. Kalen's jaw tightened once. Lyra noticed that too. Step away first, he said quietly. I did. Farther. Why? His eyes held hers. Before I forget, I am here as a witness. The archive went very silent. Iris became fascinated by a wall. Fig, traitor to all privacy, stuck her head out of the basket and stared. Lyra's heart, which had survived public humiliation, exile, and several legal discoveries, behaved like an idiot. She stepped back 1 more inch. Better? No, the answer was too honest. He looked away first. That was the only reason she survived it. Iris cleared her throat in a way that suggested she had regained interest in living. I found the witness clause. Lyra seized the distraction like a drowning woman. Read it. Iris smoothed the document. In cases where a royal bride is removed from court under correction seal but not rejected through moon right, any later restoration witnessed by foreign treaty authority preserves her right to challenge misuse of crown guardianship. Kalen's eyes sharpened. Lyra leaned over the parchment. There. Kalen read the next line. The challenge may not be settled by combat if the petitioner claims administrative breach. It must be settled by open hearing, public accounts, oath testimony and crown fitness. Lyra exhaled. Aldrich had thought he was avoiding a physical challenge. He had. He had walked into a governance trial. Kaelin looked at her. You planned this before you returned? No. I hoped for something uglier and simpler. What changed? He offered me money. And you preferred the crown. I preferred accuracy. That almost smile returned. It was becoming a problem. Kaelin leaned one shoulder against the shelf he had saved from collapse. May I ask a dangerous question? You are a dragon king. I assume most questions are. Do you want the crown because it will hurt him or because you intend to rule? Lyra's first answer was ready. Sure. Defensive. Funny. It died before she spoke. Because he had not asked to corner her. He had asked because the difference mattered. She looked at the old documents spread before them. The grain records. The house ledgers. The names of women sent away under seals signed by husbands, fathers, and kings. The petitions ignored because no one had wanted disobedient women to have good handwriting. I want it, she said slowly, because he used it to make me smaller. Kaelin waited. She continued. And because every woman in that school learned the shape of a locked door. If I take the crown, I can open more than mine. Iris looked down quickly. Kaelin did not. His gaze stayed on Lyra with an intensity that warmed and unsettled her. That, he said, is an answer worth frightening people with. Lyra looked at him. You approve? No, her brows lifted. I respect it. Approval would imply you require my permission. She had no clever answer. That was rude of him. Fig chose that moment to emerge from the scroll basket with a mouse in her mouth. Iris squeaked. Lyra turned. Kaelin sighed. Your cat has captured a witness. She does prefer live testimony. The mouse escaped. Fig pursued it across a stack of royal marriage contracts, leaving dusty paw prints over 3 generations of male arrogance. Lyra laughed. Kaelin watched her again. This time when she felt it she did not look away. 2 days later Aldrich struck back. He did it publicly because men who fear humiliation often run toward more of it. At the morning council he announced a moon civility hearing. The phrase made the older women stiffen. Lyra knew why. A moon civility hearing was an old proceeding used to determine whether a noblewoman was too unstable to hold ceremonial office. It had been misused often enough that most decent courts had buried it beneath shame. Aldrich resurrected it with a straight face. Given Lady Lyra's repeated disturbances, he said, and concerns about her conduct after correction, I have requested a formal review. Seraphine sat beside him wearing pale lavender and false concern. Madame Séverine stood near the council doors. Lyra felt Iris go rigid behind her. There she was. The matron of the House of Gentle Moons, holding a black folder of lies. Aldrich looked at Lyra. There was regret in his eyes. But also calculation. He had decided to hurt her again. That made things simpler. Lyra stood. Excellent. The council stirred. Aldrich blinked. Excellent. I accept. Seraphine's mouth parted. Madame Séverine frowned. Lyra folded her hands. But since His Majesty restored me publicly at a treaty banquet, and since His Draconic Majesty witnessed that restoration, I request the moon civility hearing be combined with my crown redress petition. The room erupted. Aldrich stood. You filed? Lyra smiled. I promised to learn every rule. Kaelin, seated as foreign witness, looked at the petition before him. His expression did not change. But one corner of the paper had begun to smoke where his thumb rested. Not from anger, Lyra suspected. From satisfaction. He lifted the petition. Filed, he said. The council went silent. Madame Séverine stepped forward. This is absurd. Lady Lyra's time at the house produced many reports of aggression, defiance, and improper influence over other women. Fig, who had somehow entered the council chamber despite 3 closed doors, jumped onto the table and sat in front of Madame Séverine. The matron recoiled. Lyra looked at Iris. Iris swallowed, then stepped forward. Her voice trembled. But it came. I copied those reports. Madame Séverine turned sharply. Iris lifted her chin. And I copied the payment instructions that ordered them. The room changed. Not enough to win. Enough to bleed the lie. Aldrich's face hardened. This will be examined at the hearing. Lyra nodded. Yes. Publicly. Seraphine's eyes flashed. For the first time she looked frightened. Good. 5. The woman who would not leave Aldrich tried one last private appeal before the hearing. Lyra expected it. Men like Aldrich believed every public crisis had a private price. They thought truth was something women carried until men offered enough money to set it down. He came at dusk. This time he did not enter her rooms uninvited. He sent a request. That was new. Lyra agreed to meet him in the small west parlor with Iris outside the door and the door open. Fig was not invited. That was also new. The cat had created enough diplomacy for 1 week. Aldrich noticed the open door. His mouth twisted. You do not trust me. I learned suspicion at a reputable institution. He looked tired again. She wished that still worked on her. It almost did. That was the humiliating part. Grief did not vanish because anger had better posture. Aldrich stood by the mantel, where silver wolves chased each other in carved stone. I made mistakes, he said. Lyra waited. He breathed out. I should not have let Seraphine wear your pearls. No, I should not have sent you away. No, I should not have assumed you would return grateful. No, he flinched. That one had landed. Lyra sat in the armchair opposite him. She did not offer tea. Aldrich looked at her hands. I loved you. Lyra's chest tightened. She hated that sentence. Not because it was false. Because it had been true and still not enough. I know, she said. His eyes lifted. There was hope there. She killed it before it fed. That is why what you did was worse. Aldrich turned away. For a moment she saw the boy she had once ridden beside through spring rain. The prince who had listened to her talk about kennel accounts and laughed when she corrected his map. The fiancé who had kissed her hair at midnight and promised she would never have to make herself smaller in his court. Then she saw the man in the alcove. Choose Seraphine. Send Lyra away. Restore her as a prop. Offer money for her silence. The boy was gone. The man remained. I cannot let you take this to trial, Aldrich said. You cannot stop me. I can offer enough to make stopping unnecessary. She almost laughed. He named the first estate, then the second, then money, then jewels, then a private guard, then the right to live anywhere in Greyhallow without interference. With each offer, Lyra understood him better. He truly thought freedom meant distance from him. He did not understand that freedom meant no longer living under the shape of his choices. When he finished, the room was very quiet. Lyra rose, walked to the window, pointed again. At the central tower. At the crown. I already named my price. Aldrich's shoulders slumped. Why? She looked back. Because you keep offering me exits from rooms I own. He stared at her. That was the moment he finally understood she was not negotiating. She was arriving. A sound came from the hallway. A soft step. Lyra glanced over. Kalen stood beyond the open door. He held no document this time. No excuse. He had come as witness, perhaps. Or because he had known Aldrich would try. Aldrich saw him and gave a short, bitter laugh. Of course. Kalen did not react. Aldrich looked between them. Is this what you want, Lyra? A dragon at your shoulder? Another king to put his hand over yours? Lyra's face went still. Kalen's eyes changed. Not toward her. Toward Aldrich. The air warmed. Lyra lifted one hand. Kalen stopped. Not because she commanded him. Because he listened. That was its own answer. Lyra turned to Aldrich. No, she said. I want a man who knows where his hand does not belong. Aldrich went red. Kalen looked away for 1 second, but not before Lyra saw the fierce satisfaction at the corner of his mouth. Aldrich left without another word. When his steps faded, Lyra stood very still. Then her hands started shaking. The fury had held her upright. Once the door closed, it withdrew its support. Kalen remained at the threshold. May I enter? She looked up. He was the most dangerous man in 2 kingdoms, and he had asked permission to cross a parlor threshold. That did something inconvenient to her heart. Yes. He entered and stopped at a respectful distance. No pity. Thank the moon, no pity. You handled him well, he said. I wanted to throw him through the mantle. I noticed. I did not. I also noticed. That broke a laugh from her. It came out tired. Kalen's expression softened. You are allowed to be tired. I am busy. Those are not opposites. She looked down at her hands, annoyed by the trembling. Kalen saw it. He did not reach immediately. He took a folded handkerchief from his coat and held it out. Lyra did not take it. Do not pity me. I am trying not to want to burn the room for you. The words were quiet. Controlled. More dangerous because they were controlled. Lyra looked at him. His face remained calm, but something ancient moved behind his eyes. Not for the first time she understood why mountains feared dragons. He lowered the handkerchief until it rested on the table beside her hand. Her fingers moved before her pride authorized them. Not to the cloth. To his wrist. She caught it lightly. Just enough to steady herself. Kalen went completely still. The stillness was not discomfort. It was discipline. Lyra felt the strength of him under her fingers, waiting, refusing to turn her need into his opportunity. Better? He asked. No, his mouth almost curved. Honest. It is an unfortunate habit. It suits you. She released him first. He let her. That became the problem with Kalen. He always let her. She began to want him to ask. That night, after Iris took the hearing files away, Kalen remained in the parlor long enough to discuss witness order, Ash Court audit law, and the unpleasant habit Wolf elders had of hiding women's petitions under ceremonial language. No touch followed. No confession. No claim. Only one moment as he left, when Lyra's hand brushed the back of his glove while reaching for a ledger. Both of them paused. Neither mentioned it. The pause did more than words. 6. The hairpin before war the night before the hearing, Greyhallow refused to sleep. Torches burned in the lower courtyards. Messengers crossed the palace like restless thoughts. The council scribes sent 3 contradictory notices before Iris confiscated their ink and corrected all of them herself. Lyra sat in her chamber with law pages spread across the table. Her red gown for the hearing hung on the wardrobe door. Severe. High-collared. Fitted for movement. Not submission. Not mourning. A battle standard with sleeves. Her hands were stained with ink. So were her cuffs. So was one cheek because she had forgotten hands touched faces. Iris entered, saw the cheek inside. You look like Fig edited you. Then I look legally persuasive. Iris set down a stack of witness notes. Madame Severine arrived. Seraphine's father arrived. Lord Fenwick arrived with 2 lawyers and a hat that suggests guilt. Good. We will question the hat first. Iris smiled, then hesitated. Are you afraid? Yes. Good. Useful. A knock came. Iris opened the door. Kalen stood outside with a narrow black case. I brought the Ash Court seal copies, he said. Iris took one look at Lyra's ink-stained cheek, one look at Kalen, and discovered an urgent need to organize documents in the next room. Traitor. Kalen entered only after Lyra nodded. He set the case on the table. Then he looked at her hair. Lyra touched the back of her head. Her bronze comb had loosened. A thick lock of dark hair had slipped free and fallen against her neck. I know, she said. I am a national disgrace. Not national. Regional? Possibly diplomatic. She snorted, then tried to fix the comb. Ink marked the side of her hand. Kalen watched the failed attempt. May I? The room changed again. It was becoming his worst habit. Lyra should have said no. She did not. Yes. Kalen stepped behind her. Not close enough to crowd. Close enough that her skin noticed him before her mind did. His fingers touched the loosened comb. Slowly. Carefully. As if she were a law document that might ignite if handled poorly. He gathered the fallen lock without brushing her neck. Almost without brushing. One fingertip grazed the skin just behind her ear. Lyra forgot the first line of tomorrow's opening argument. Kalen stopped. Too much. No, the word came too quickly. His silence warmed. She felt rather than saw his almost smile. He set the comb back into place. There. Did you ruin it? I would not dare disturb a woman armed with law. Liar. His hand remained near her hair for half a breath. Then lowered. I am trying to be. That was not fair. She turned. He was close. Too close for policy. Perfect for disaster. His gaze moved over the ink on her cheek. May I? He asked again. Lyra lifted her chin. For the cheek, Your Majesty. Do not get ambitious. Ambition is exactly what brought me to Greyhallow. She should not have enjoyed that answer. He took the handkerchief from the previous night, dampened one corner from the water glass, and touched it to the ink mark. The cloth was cool. His fingers were warm. The contrast stole a little breath from her. He wiped once, twice, then stopped, though a faint mark remained. "There is still ink," she said. "I know." "Then why stop?" His eyes held hers. "Because I am behaving better than I want to." Lyra's mouth went dry. Behind the adjoining door, Iris dropped something. Probably dignity. Kaelin stepped back. Just enough. Always enough. Lyra reached for the table to remind herself she had bones. "Tomorrow," she said, "you will stand as witness." "Yes." "You will not interfere unless procedure requires it." "Yes." "You will not burn the room." Pause. Define room. "Kaelin." "I will not burn the room." She narrowed her eyes. "Or the people in it." "Your trust wounds me." "My trust is busy preparing testimony." His full smile appeared then. Small. Rare. Devastating. "Then I will wait until it is available." He left before she could answer. Lyra remained by the table, hair fixed, cheeks still faintly marked with ink, pulse entirely unfit for public office. Iris peered through the door. "Should I pretend I heard nothing?" "Yes." "I cannot." "Then pretend better." Iris smiled. For a moment, Lyra saw the woman she had become, frightened still but no longer ruled by fear. That mattered. Tomorrow they would need every brave person they had made. 7. The hearing of Gentle Moons. The Moon Civility hearing was held in the old amphitheater beneath Greyhallow's central tower. Aldrich wanted the council chamber. Lyra demanded the amphitheater. If he wanted to question her fitness in public, she wanted the public to fit. 500 people came. Nobles, merchants, guards, kennel hands, widows, former students of the House of Gentle Moons, and women who had never dared speak of what had happened to them there. The moon banners hung from the stone arches. The alpha crown rested on a black velvet cushion before the council dais. Aldrich sat to its right. Lyra sat to its left. Seraphine sat behind Aldrich in white, trying very hard to look innocent. Madame Severine stood near the witness circle with her black folder. Iris stood behind Lyra. Kaelin stood at the edge of the dais as foreign witness, dark and still, his gold eyes reflecting the torchlight. Fig sat on the crown cushion. That was not planned. No one knew how to remove her without making the situation worse. Aldrich looked at the cat. Then at Lyra. Lyra widened her eyes slightly. What can one do? The chief elder banged his staff. This hearing will determine Lady Lyra Vale's ceremonial fitness and address her petition of crown redress under Section 41. Murmurs. The elder looked as if he regretted being alive. Madame Severine, you may present the House reports. Madame Severine stepped into the circle. She read beautifully. Lyra had to give her that. Report after report described Lyra as aggressive, mocking, disruptive, physically intimidating, improper, dominant over weaker women, resistant to humility and dangerously influential. The words were meant to shame her. They did not. Lyra listened as if hearing a list of accomplishments. When Madame Severine finished, Seraphine dabbed at her eyes with a lace handkerchief. How difficult it must have been, Seraphine said, for the poor women trapped under such influence. A woman in the public benches snorted. Loudly. The elder frowned. Lyra stood. May I ask Madame Severine questions? The elder glanced at Aldrich. Aldrich's jaw tightened. She may, Kaelin said. The elder looked startled. Kaelin's voice remained mild. Ash Court audit rights include cross-examination of reports funded by Dragon Road grants. Aldrich's eyes flashed. The elder cleared his throat. She may. Lyra stepped into the witness circle. Madame Severine looked at her with cold satisfaction. Lyra smiled. Madam, did I scrub the east stairs for 110 consecutive mornings? You were assigned corrective labor. Did I complete it? Yes. Did I also help 6 other women complete theirs when they were ill? Madame Severine hesitated. That is irrelevant. Lyra turned to the elder. Please note reluctance. A ripple passed through the benches. The elder, trapped by procedure, nodded to the clerk. Lyra continued. Did I strike any student? No, but, did I steal food? No. Did I break chapel windows? No. Did I organize lessons in balance, breath and self-defense after a visiting lord cornered a new adult novice in the West Hall? The amphitheater went cold. Aldrich sat forward. Madame Severine's face tightened. There was no formal complaint. Lyra's voice stayed calm. Because you ordered Iris Bell to destroy it. Every eye moved to Iris. Iris went pale. Lyra looked back at her. You do not have to. Iris swallowed. Then stepped forward. Yes, she said. The word shook. Then strengthened. Yes. I was ordered to remove the page. I copied it instead. Madame Severine snapped. That clerk is resentful and unreliable. Fig stood on the crown cushion. Her back arched. Lyra held out one hand. Iris placed a ledger copy in it. Lyra gave it to the elder. Here is the original complaint copy. Here is the payment from Lord Fenwick's family to seal it. Here is Madame Severine's signature. The public benches stirred. Aldrich stared at the page. Seraphine looked at her lap. Lyra turned back to Madame Severine. Shall we discuss the other payments? Madame Severine's lips pressed white. Lyra lifted a second ledger. This one is more interesting. It includes instructions from fathers, husbands, and betrothed men, including one crown seal from Greyhallow. The amphitheater erupted. Aldrich stood. That seal authorized education, not mistreatment. Lyra looked at him. For once she did not smile. Then why did you never ask what education meant? He had no answer. That silence mattered. It moved through the crowd like a verdict before the verdict. Seraphine rose abruptly. This is a distraction. Lady Lyra is unstable. Everyone saw what she did at the ballroom. Everyone has heard what she did after her return. Lyra looked at her. Yes. Let us discuss restraint. Seraphine faltered. Lyra faced the crowd. At the ballroom, I humiliated a man who had humiliated me first. I did not leave lasting injury. I did not need cruelty. I used a punch bowl, bad footing, and his own arrogance. A sound moved through the benches. Someone laughed. The elder struck his staff. Lyra continued. At the conservatory I poured wine. Lady Seraphine lunged. The bench moved. The orange tree made its own choices. This time the laugh could not be stopped. Even one of the elders covered his mouth. Aldrich closed his eyes. Callan looked down, but his shoulders shifted once. Lyra turned to Seraphine. You call me unstable because I refuse to suffer quietly. But let us examine your restraint. She lifted a pearl bracelet. The Luna bracelet. Seraphine's face changed. Aldrich looked sharply at her. Lyra held it up. This was removed from my chamber after I was sent away. Lady Seraphine wore it at my restoration banquet. Seraphine said, His Majesty gave it? No, Lyra said. He gave permission after you took it. Seraphine went still. Lyra nodded to Fig. The cat yawned. Not useful. Iris coughed and produced a small packet. Lyra accepted it. Fig stole several ribbons from Lady Seraphine's room. One was wrapped around a pawn ticket from the Moon Jewelers. The bracelet was resized 2 weeks before Aldrich gave permission. Callan's eyes moved to Fig. Efficient investigator, he murmured. Fig began washing one paw. Seraphine's voice sharpened. It is only jewelry. No, Lyra said. It is Luna regalia. The elder leaned over the document. His expression tightened. Lyra turned to Aldrich. You allowed another woman to wear my regalia, sit near my place, use my charities, receive my grain, and prepare to hold my public role while I remained your unrejected, unrestored, crown-sealed betrothed. Aldrich's face was rigid. Lyra stepped closer to the crown cushion. Fig finally hopped down. The question is not whether I am fit to hold ceremonial office. Her voice rang through the amphitheater. The question is whether a man who misused correction law, concealed replacement plans, and offered me payment to abandon my claim is fit to hold the crown. No one breathed. Aldrich stood very still. Seraphine whispered, You cannot. Lyra looked at her. I can. Madame Severine snapped, This is rebellion. Callan stepped forward. The torches leaned toward him. No, he said. This is procedure. The word hit the room like a blade laid flat on stone. The chief elder looked ill. But he read the law. He had to. Under section 41 through 47, if crown redress is accepted, the petitioner may demand an open fitness review. The crown holder, the petitioner, and all named parties must submit accounts, witnesses, and regalia for judgment. Aldrich's voice came rough. This law was written for wartime misuse. Lyra looked at him. You sent me to a school that mistreated women. You used me for a treaty while keeping another woman ready. You tried to buy my silence. How peaceful of you. The crowd answered that one. Not with laughter. With a low, furious sound. Aldrich heard it. For the first time Lyra saw true fear in his eyes. Not fear of losing her. Fear of being seen. That was worse for him. Better for justice. The elder raised his staff. The hearing will proceed to Crown Fitness. Seraphine sat down hard. Fig leaped back onto the cushion beside the Alpha Crown and slapped it once. The sound rang louder than it should have. Lyra did not laugh. Not yet. 8. Crown Fitness took 3 days. Aldrich had wanted one afternoon of questioning Lyra's manners. He received 3 days of public accounts. Day 1 exposed the money. Seraphine's family had received grain contracts they never fulfilled. Palace funds had paid for gowns, jewels, travel, and companion allowances, disguised as diplomatic expenses. Lyra presented every number cleanly. No dramatics. No tears. Just figures. The old women in the audience nodded along with fierce attention. There was nothing more dangerous than a group of women who had managed household accounts for 40 years watching a favored companion pretend she did not understand receipts. Seraphine tried to faint. Fig ruined it by dragging a cushion under her before she fell. The crowd laughed so hard the hearing paused. Lyra leaned over Seraphine. How thoughtful. Even my cat is committed to your safety. Seraphine opened her eyes and glared. Day 2 exposed the House of Gentle Moons. Iris testified for nearly an hour. Her voice shook at first, then steadied, then sharpened. She named the records, the payments, the false discipline reports, the students whose letters had been stopped. More women stood after her. Former students. Some noble. Some poor. Some married to men who now stared at the floor. They did not tell lurid stories. They did not need to. They spoke of locked doors, stolen letters, meals withheld as punishment, legal rights hidden, signatures forged, anger renamed madness. Every sentence became a stone in the foundation of Lyra's claim. Madame Séverine broke on the second afternoon. Not from guilt. From fury. These women required correction, she snapped. Without correction they become like her. She pointed at Lyra. The amphitheater went still. Lyra stood. Thank you. Madame Séverine blinked. Lyra turned to the crowd. She is right. Without correction women may become like me. Silence. Then Lyra smiled. They may learn to read law. Carry water. Protect each other. Remember who signed what. Laugh when a powerful man falls into a cake. Demand crowns instead of hush money. A laugh began. Then applause. Not polite. Not courtly. Huge. Aldrich stared at the crowd as if it had betrayed him. No. It had recognized itself. Kalen watched Lyra from the witness dais. There was no almost smile now. There was pride. Open enough to be seen. Controlled enough not to steal the room from her. That was what pulled at her most. He did not make himself the center of her victory. He simply stood where everyone could see he believed she was worthy of it. Day 3 exposed Aldrich. That was the hardest. Not because the evidence was weak. Because once Lyra had loved him. The council read the correction order bearing his seal. They read the restoration invitation calling her beloved and rightful. They read the private draft naming Seraphine as future practical consort, once Lyra had settled into ceremonial compliance. They read the estate offer. They read the separation terms. They read the letter Aldrich had written to the house after the first year. Continue pressure. She must return manageable. The room blurred for 1 second. Lyra had not seen that letter before. Iris made a soft sound behind her. Aldrich's face changed. Shame. At last. Too late. Lyra held out her hand. The elder gave her the letter. The handwriting was his. Strong. Familiar. She remembered that hand curled around hers during winter rides. She remembered that hand brushing flour from her cheek in the kitchens. She remembered that hand gripping her wrist in the ballroom. Continue pressure. She looked at Aldrich. He whispered, I was angry. The amphitheater heard him. Lyra wished it had not. Not because it helped him. Because it showed how small the reason was. Angry. He had destroyed 3 years because he was embarrassed. Lyra folded the letter. Very carefully. Then she walked to the brazier in the center of the chamber. The law required all false correction orders to be burned after judgment. Judgment had not yet been declared. Lyra did not burn it. She held it above the flame. Let the heat brown the edge. Then withdrew it. No, she said. Not yet. Let him look at it a little longer. Aldrich lowered his head. Seraphine cried quietly. Madame Séverine stared at nothing. The elder called for final statements. Aldrich stood first. He looked less like a king than he had 3 days ago. That was not Lyra's imagination. Power was partly costume. His had begun to tear. I wronged Lady Lyra, he said. The room listened. I failed her. I allowed pride, anger, and poor counsel to guide me. I humiliated her publicly. I sent her away unjustly. I permitted Lady Seraphine to overstep. I misused funds and correction authority. Seraphine made a wounded sound. Aldrich did not look at her. I asked the council for mercy. There it was. Not Lyra. The council. He still misunderstood the room. Lyra stood. Her final statement was shorter. My name is Lyra Vale. I was chosen as future Luna of Greyhallow. When my fiancé chose another woman, I defended my dignity in the only language he heard. A few smiles. I was sent away to learn obedience. I learned law. I learned strength. I learned records. I learned that many women had been made quiet before me. Her voice deepened. I do not ask this council to punish Aldrich because he broke my heart. A heart is mine to heal. Aldrich flinched. I ask this council to remove him because he used the crown to make private humiliation into public policy. No one moved. Lyra turned and pointed to the crown. I claim crown redress. Not money. Not apology. Not distance. Her hand lowered. I claim the office he used against me. The elder looked to Kaelin. As foreign witness, does Ashcourt recognize the petition as lawful? Kaelin stepped forward. Every torch leaned. Yes. One word. A gate opening. The elder swallowed. The council will vote. The vote took less time than Aldrich expected. Longer than Lyra wanted. When it ended, the chief elder stood. His voice shook. By majority of council, witness approval, public account, and crown redress law, Aldrich of Greyhallow is suspended from Alpha Crown authority pending permanent abdication terms. A roar broke from the amphitheater. Aldrich closed his eyes. Seraphine stood. No, the elder raised his voice. Lady Seraphine Marrow is stripped of all informal court privileges. Her family contracts are revoked. Misused grain and funds are to be repaid threefold. Seraphine staggered. Madame Séverine of the House of Gentle Moons is removed from office. The house will be placed under public audit. Its assets will fund restitution to former students. Madame Severine's mouth opened. No sound came. The elder turned to Lyra. Lady Lyra Vale is appointed Crown Regent and acting Alpha Queen of Greyhallow until the full moon assembly confirms permanent rule. The amphitheater shook. Not from magic. From people rising. Lyra did not move. She could not. For one moment she was back outside the ballroom curtains, hearing Aldrich choose someone else. Then Fig jumped onto the dais, seized one of the loose crown ribbons, and dragged the Alpha crown toward Lyra's shoes. The entire chamber watched the cat tug the symbol of Greyhallow across black stone. Kaelin bent, lifted the crown before Fig could chew the velvet and held it out. Not above Lyra's head. Not claiming the right to crown her. Offering it. Her choice. Lyra looked at him. His gold eyes were steady. Your crown, he said. Her breath caught. Not the crown. The She took it. The metal was heavier than she expected. Good. Let it be heavy. She turned to the crowd and lifted it. The roar that followed reached the tower bells. Aldrich watched. So did Seraphine. So did every woman who had once been told to lower her voice. Lyra did not put the crown on yet. She held it against her chest. Then she looked at Aldrich. Forgive me, she said softly. His face twisted. She smiled. I learned too well. 9. After the fall the punishments were not symbolic. Lyra made sure of that. Aldrich did not go to a comfortable hunting lodge to drink regret beneath old portraits. He was stripped of command authority, removed from the royal apartments, and assigned to the Northern Oath House under guard. There he would spend 1 year reviewing every correction order issued under his reign and signing restitution under council supervision. No crown. No favored companion. No private treasury. No songs except the ones the guards sang about cake. Seraphine's family lost 3 estates, 4 grain contracts, and every court position obtained through her influence. Seraphine herself was not sent to the old house of gentle moons. Lyra would not build justice from the same rotten wood. Instead, Seraphine was assigned to public service under the Reformed Academy Board. She would inventory laundry, copy legal rights for incoming students, and serve meals to the women her family's politics had helped silence. When she protested, Lyra listened with deep sympathy. Then gave her a larger apron. Madame Severine's fall was colder. Her private rooms were opened. Letters were returned. Locked accounts were seized. The House of Gentle Moons was renamed the House of Free Moons, and its first new director was Iris Bell. Iris fainted when Lyra told her. Not gracefully. Fig sat on her stomach until she woke. I cannot run a school, Iris whispered once they got her into a chair. Lyra porete. You ran its records while terrified. You can run it better while angry. I am not noble. Excellent. Nobles made a mess of it. Iris laughed, then cried, then laughed again. Lyra appointed a council of former students, widows, healers, and legal clerks. The new house would teach court law, accounts, physical safety, family rights, property rights, diplomacy, and dance. Posture remained optional. Fig was named honorary inspector. No one voted against it. Kalen remained in Greyhallow through the full moon assembly. Officially, Ashcourt needed a stable treaty partner. Unofficially, he had developed a habit of appearing wherever Lyra was most likely to be overworking. The first time he found her in the council chamber after midnight, surrounded by petitions. You need sleep, he said. She did not look up. I need 3 more clerks. I brought 4. She looked up. 4 Ashcourt clerks stood behind him with document cases and expressions of professional terror. Lyra stared. Kalen shrugged. Dragon bureaucracy breeds durable people. She laughed. The second time he found her in the training yard, where she was teaching palace maids how to break wrist grips using laundry poles. He watched for 10 minutes. Then said, Your left turn is too generous. Lyra handed her pole to a maid and faced him. Show me. Every maid in the yard went silent. Kalen removed his coat. That was unfair. Completely unnecessary. Very educational. He stepped onto the training sand. Attack. You are asking a woman educated in obedience to strike a king? Yes. That seems politically fragile. I will survive the scandal. Lyra moved. He caught the first strike. She expected that. She used the pole to hook his ankle. He expected that. He turned with her, not against her, and suddenly he was behind her, his hands covering hers on the staff. The maid stopped pretending to breathe. His chest did not touch her back. Almost. Again with that almost. His voice lowered near her ear. You grip like you are proving a point. I am usually proving several. Use both hands. That sounded less instructional than you intended. The yard went silent. A maid dropped a laundry pole. Kalen's breath warmed the side of Lyra's neck. That depends, he said. On what? On whether you learned. Lyra turned her head just enough to see him. Wrong idea. His face was too close. His eyes were too steady. His control was too visible. She shifted her grip. Then used both hands to sweep his knee. He did not fall. But he did step back. 1 full step. The maids applauded like they had witnessed a royal birth. Fig sat on the training wall, tail flicking with the smugness of an aunt who had arranged a marriage. Kalen bowed to Lyra. Your Majesty. Lyra's pulse took unreasonable liberties. Your Majesty, she returned. The third time he found her in the west parlor, where Aldrich had once offered estates for her silence. She was alone. No papers. No Iris. No Fig. That was how he knew something was wrong. Lyra stood by the window, looking toward the tower where the crown now rested under her seal. Full moon assembly is tomorrow, Kalen said. Yes. You will be confirmed. Probably. You sound thrilled. She turned. Her face was calm. Too calm. What if I become what he was? Kalen entered slowly. Stopped several steps away. You will not. You cannot know that. No. I can observe evidence. She folded her arms. Evidence? You question yourself before power is fully yours. Aldrich questioned consequences after power was lost. Lyra looked out the window again. That is a neat sentence. I have had time to prepare. That pulled a small smile from her. Then it faded. I wanted the crown because he used it against me. What if wanting it began in the wrong place? Kalen was quiet for a moment. Then he said, fire often begins in the wrong place. That does not mean it cannot warm a house. She looked back. His gaze was steady. You are not pure vengeance, Lyra. The sound of her name in his voice moved through her like a hand over a scar. Not erasing. Acknowledging. He continued. You are also the woman who brought Iris back. The woman who made Seraphine serve food instead of vanish. The woman who turned a punishment school into a rights house. The woman whose cat has more court authority than 3 elders. Fig, as if summoned by insult or praise, pushed the door open with her head and entered. She carried one of Kalen's gloves again. Lyra looked down. I am beginning to think she wants us married. Kalen's expression went very still. Lyra realized what she had said. Heat rose to her face. Fig dropped the glove between them. Kalen looked at the glove. Then at Lyra. Very calmly he said, she has stronger diplomatic instincts than most ambassadors. Lyra should have laughed. She did not. The room changed. Not dramatically. No thunder. No music. Just the sudden awareness that there was no law paper between them. No hearing. No Aldrich. No audience. Only a woman who had been taught to fight for every inch of choice. And a man who had never once reached before she invited him. Kalen took one slow step closer. Then stopped. May I? Lyra's breath caught. He had not said what. He did not need to. She could say no. He had made sure of it. That was why she said yes. Kalen lifted his hand and touched her hair where a strand had fallen near her cheek. Only that. A small touch. Barely more than warmth. Lyra closed her eyes. The gentleness hurt more than hunger would have. Hunger she understood. Gentleness asked what she wanted. When she opened her eyes he was still watching her. No triumph. No claim. Restraint, yes. But not cold. There was fire under it. A lot of fire. After tomorrow, he said, I would like permission to court you properly. Properly? With witnesses, letters, irritating gifts, and whatever number of cats your household demands. Fig demands tribute. I assumed. Lyra's mouth curved. And if I say I need time? I will wait. And if I say I may never leave Greyhallow? Then Ash Court will improve its roads. Her heart did the dangerous thing again. It leaned. Lyra looked at the crown tower. Then at him. After tomorrow, she said, ask me again. His smile finally appeared fully. Small. Rare. Devastating. I will. Fig sat on his glove. The matter apparently was sealed. 10. The full moon assembly. The full moon rose enormous over Greyhallow. Every pack bell rang. The assembly gathered in the open square beneath the tower. Thousands came. Nobles in velvet. Farmers in wool. Guards in polished breastplates. Former students of the House of Free Moons wearing simple silver ribbons. Iris stood with them, pale but upright. Fig sat on her shoulder, which was not authorized but had become impossible to regulate. Lyra wore no white. No pale blue. No submissive colors chosen by men with apology problems. She wore deep black trimmed with silver and red, the colors of old Greyhallow queens who had ridden to border councils with swords under their cloaks. The alpha crown rested on a stone pedestal. Aldrich was brought from the oath house to witness the assembly. That was part of the sentence. He stood without chains. Lyra had refused chains. She wanted consequence, not theater. He looked at her once. She gave him a nod. Not warm. Not cruel. Finished. Seraphine stood near the public service benches in plain gray, her hair covered, her face tight with humiliation. Madame Severine was absent, still under formal inquiry, her assets frozen, her letters catalogued. The chief elder read the charges. The evidence. The vote. The public terms. Then he turned to the assembly. Greyhallow must confirm or reject the crown regent. Voices rose. Not one. Not all at once. But enough. Then more. Then nearly every voice in the square. Confirm. 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 The sound rolled against the tower stones. Lyra stood very still. Her wolf lifted her head inside Lyra's chest, no longer wounded, silent, no longer snarling alone. Here the wolf seemed to say, no. The elder lifted the crown. Then stopped. He looked uncertainly at Fig, who had jumped from Iris's shoulder and trotted toward the pedestal. "No," Lyra said. Everyone froze. The elder stared. Aldrich stared. Kalen, standing at the edge of the foreign witness platform, did not. He watched her with quiet focus. Lyra stepped forward. "I will take it myself." The elder lowered his hands. "Good." Lyra picked up the crown. It was still heavy. Still meant to be. She lifted it above her head. For one heartbeat, she remembered Aldrich offering estates. Seraphine wearing pearls. Madame Severine saying women required correction. The locked windows. The blue chapel floor. Irish trembling with ledgers. Fig stealing the glove. Kalen asking if she needed assistance. No. She had needed witnesses. She had needed rules. She had needed her own hands. Lyra set the crown on her head. The square erupted. Bells rang. Wolves howled from the kennels. The royal hounds answered from the wall. Fig, overcome by ceremony or personal ambition, leaped onto the pedestal and batted at a trailing ribbon. Lyra laughed. The crowd laughed with her. That mattered. A queen could be feared. A better queen could make people breathe. The elder knelt. One by one the council followed. Then the guards. Then the nobles. Then, slower than the rest, Aldrich. He knelt before the woman he had sent away to learn obedience. Lyra looked down at him. His face was pale. "Lyra," he said quietly. She waited. "I am sorry." The square was loud, but she heard him. So did the nearest witnesses. For once, his apology had nowhere to hide. Lyra studied him. The pain was not gone. But it had changed shape. It no longer held the knife. "I know," she said. His eyes lifted. Hope, foolish and wounded, flickered there. Lyra ended it gently. "I am not yours to win back." He bowed his head. This time he understood. The final treaty signing happened inside the Moon Hall after the assembly. Ashcourt recognized Lyra as Alpha Queen of Greyhallow. Greyhallow recognized Ashcourt's audit rights over the former House of Gentle Moons. The Border Grain Treaty was rewritten with stronger protections for women sent between courts under marriage seals. Lyra signed first. Kalen signed after her. Their hands did not touch. Everyone noticed anyway. After the signing, the hall emptied slowly. Ministers wanted instructions. Elders wanted reassurance. Guards wanted orders. Former students wanted to cry. Fig wanted the treaty ribbon. At last, near midnight, Lyra stood alone on the balcony above the square. Not alone for long. Kalen joined her after asking permission with a look. She nodded. The moon painted silver across the hard lines of his face. Below them, Greyhallow celebrated cautiously, joyfully, as if learning a new kind of noise. Kalen rested his hands on the stone rail. "Well?" Lyra asked. He looked at her. "May I ask now?" She pretended to think. "You may." His eyes warmed. "Queen Lyra Vale of Greyhallow, may I court you properly?" There it was. No rescue. No claim. No demand. A question. Lyra looked out over her city. Then at the man beside her. The courtship must not interfere with governance. Of course. No surprise dragons in council chambers. "I will try." No trying. Promising. Pause. "I promise not to shift in council chambers unless the furniture deserves it." Kalen. His mouth curved. "I promise." She turned toward him fully. "And I will not be moved to Ashcourt like a treaty chest. No, I will not be softened. I would consider that vandalism." A laugh escaped her. Then his expression grew more serious. "I do not want a quiet woman, Lyra." The words reached deeper than they should have. "I want the woman who asked for witnesses instead of rescue. The woman who learned every rule and came back sharper. The woman who pointed at a crown because money was too small." Her throat tightened. He stepped closer, still not touching. Waiting. "I want you," he said. "When you want me back. Not before." Lyra's heart did not leap. It settled. That was better. Leaping was for younger hearts that still believed love meant falling. Settling was for women who had learned to stand. She reached for his hand. His fingers closed around hers carefully as if the care mattered. It did. For a moment he only held her hand. Then his gaze lowered to her mouth. Stopped. Returned to her eyes. Lyra felt that restraint like a touch. She lifted her free hand and caught the edge of his coat collar. "Is this also proper courtship?" His breath changed. "Only slightly." Enough. No, he said. This is dangerous. Your Majesty, I survived etiquette. His thumb brushed once over her knuckles. A small movement. Devastating. Kalen bent his head. Not to her mouth. To her hand. The kiss pressed against her knuckles was controlled, courtly, and absolutely not harmless. No, he said against her skin. This is me behaving better than I want to. Lyra forgot the bells. Forgot the city. Forgot, for one scandalous second, every useful law she had ever read. Then Fig chose that moment to leap onto the balcony rail with Kalen's treaty ribbon in her mouth. Lyra sighed. She approves. Kalen looked at the cat. She is stealing state documents. That is how she shows affection. Then I am honored. Below the bells rang again. Lyra squeezed his hand. The wound inside her did not vanish. It would not. But it was no longer a command. It was history. And history, Lyra had learned, could be entered into the record, examined in public and used to write better law. Aldrich had sent her away to learn obedience. She had returned with rules, witnesses, a furious cat, a frightened clerk who became a director, a dragon king who knew how to wait, and enough nerve to ask for the crown. In the end, she did not flee to the dragon king. She walked beside him after she had already won. That was the part Greyhallow remembered. That was the part the songs kept. Not the cake. Although, to be fair, the cake remained very popular. So tell me, would you have taken the money and left or pointed at the crown like Lyra did? Subscribe for more Rejected Luna Revenge Dragon King romance, and women who finally stopped lowering their voices.